What's up, guys? Welcome back to another week of the Good News Pod. Thanks for jumping on. We have our lovely friend, Brianna Perez, better known to me as Brianna Tricky, actually. No shade to Perez. We love that. We love the marriage. We love the healthy relationship. This is Bri, fam. She is, I'll do a brief intro and then you can, tell us a little more. But she moved from California in 2021. Her and her husband, at the time of decision, fiance, moved over here, married when they moved. Good to know. They got married before they moved.
Make sure we say that.
She's a worship leader here at Gospel. Her husband is our creative director here at Gospel. And they've been apart since the conception of the church. Yes. So, that's who Bri is. She's been serving alongside.
Yeah.
We'll get into all of our history in a little bit. But, so Bri is very familiar to us, our family, my personal life. Obviously, Billy and I are great friends with her and her husband. But she is like one of my best friends at this stage of life, which is so crazy to think.
Looking back.
Yeah, looking back, it's wild. So Bri, if you want to just give us a little bit of background on you. Don't get too much into the story of here.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll talk about how you got here.
Yeah.
But more so on the angle of like
who I am, how I was raised.
How old are you? How long you been with your man? All that stuff.
Okay, so as she said, I am Bri. I am 27 years old, about to be 28, 90s baby.
Hey.
Born and raised in Southern California in Palm Springs, where we met.
Yeah.
Moved around a couple of times just because of different financial situations with my family, but I come from a mixed family, mixed background, mixed everything, just very cultural, just so much.
Your mom is black.
My mom's black,
white.
Dad's white, just so much vibrancy within their relationship and in my life, just because I was surrounded by it. And then growing up in Southern California, you're just used to so many different things, cultures, people, religions, lifestyles, grew up around that. Moved to San Diego in 2011. So I was
2010?
No, it was 2011.
What?
It was going into sophomore going into junior year.
Yeah, okay.
It was like midway through sophomore year. Finished school there, but it was terrifying just because.
So you lived in Palm Springs
up until 15 years of my life. Very heavily raised in the church. Then moved to San Diego.
So let's slow down. So you were born and raised pretty much most of your life in Palm Springs.
Mm-hmm.
And you were involved before you came to Destiny, because Destiny is where we met. Destiny is my home church. Destiny, I think, considerably is partially your home church. But where were you at before that? Like, what was your first experience of church?
It was Calvary Chapel in Cathedral City.
Okay.
I want to say it was off of like Ramon and I forget the other, but like it was there always at church. Grew up in that church. Every Sunday, every Wednesday.
Do you remember starting to go there, or your parents were already involved there before you were even born?
Already involved there before I was born.
Okay.
That's where like
you were born in the pews.
Pretty much.
Okay, cool. Which is different because I know for like my sister, like we started going to church when she was like in 6th grade. So that's so different than like knowing it from
like
you don't know anything else.
It was to the point like we were so in that church that my mom was out of town at one point that I had this crazy, I think it's called the croup or the coop cough or something, but obviously like as asthmatics we always have coughs, but it was to the point where my dad was there but my mom was out of town because she worked for Marriott and she was traveling opening up different locations, and to the point where like the pastor came like when I was in the hospital and was there with us for a bit. We love
an involved pastor in his community.
Yes, we do. And so it was like I was just so in and out of that church, not in and out, but I was so in that church like growing up. And then it was maybe when I was like middle school. I was 6th grade when my parents were
transitioned. Yeah,
because we were already living in La Quinta, but it was like, we're going to do something different. Let's try to find something closer to home, even though Cathedral City was maybe like 20 minutes. Yeah. But we ended up, my parents were watching on TV because they used to have it on. I forget what channel it was.
It was Channel 3.
It was Channel 3. Yeah. So it was on Channel 3. My parents saw, they were like, oh, that school's actually like 5 minutes up the road from us.
Yeah, there was a commercial. I think there were commercials running on a few different channels of the church starting.
Yes.
Because at the time there was no like social media. So it was there was a commercial.
And then once we started, my parents were like, this is where we need to be. And for me as like middle school, I was like devastated at first because I was like,
you had all your friends.
Yeah, these are the kids, like the friends I did VBS with, like every summer, went from pretty much from preschool into middle school with.
Yeah.
And, you know, those were like,
those are your people.
Those are my people. Yeah. And then going to Destiny was like, at first I was like, why are they doing
Transitions can be hard for church kids.
Oh, yeah. It is. And then we went to Destiny, and at first I was like, I remember my first day, I was like, Mom, can I please sit with you guys? And she was like, no, you have to go to the middle. I feel like
I remember the first day you were there.
And then I was like, no, I don't want to go. And my mom was like, you got this. And me, a little introvert, like, I was like, I don't want to go.
Partial introvert.
Partial, like, outgoing introvert. But at the time, it was worse.
Yeah.
And then I remember, I think you introduced yourself to me first.
I'm pretty
sure it was you. And then Sam was over there like,
it's terrified in the corner. Shout out to Sam.
I love Sam so much, but she was over there, and then I forget her name. I think it was Danica. Is that her name?
That was one of our friends. Yeah.
And then it was like, but you were the one who came up to me. I'm pretty sure.
Sounds
and then
accurate.
It was Pastor Sergio.
Pastor Sergio. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from then on, we were there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much when Brie and I met. When she was in 6th grade, I was in 7th grade, and it was like the first few weeks, obviously, you're like meeting somebody. It's like weird or awkward or whatever. Yeah. But once we got over that hump, we were like inseparable. Me, you, Sam, Danica, all of us. Spent summers with each other all year.
Every day.
Everything we could do, we did with each other. So then when you moved to San Diego, it was like
it was devastating.
That was like the first friend that I ever had move.
See, for me, I was like at the time, I was like, oh, it's bitter. Like, I didn't realize what was going on. Because I was
San Diego was so cool, too.
Because I was like, ooh, San Diego to the beach. And, you know, in my head, I was like, oh, my gosh, going to see the surfer boys. And like, all these things. Like, I was like, because you see all these things on TV. So I was like, oh, this is what it's going to be like. And then you get there.
Live by the hills.
Exactly. I was like, wow, I'm going to be a hills girl. Laguna Hills, period. Nothing like that. I was in Oceanside. Yeah, period. No hate to Oceanside. I love Oceanside. But then, like, going there, I was just like, okay, this is going to be fun.
So let me ask you this. Obviously, you were like really well involved at Destiny. You were doing summer camps, youth camps. You were involved in youth ministry. Mm-hmm. You were on the dance team. Like, you did all that stuff like that. You were in kids' church, all that. When you guys moved to San Diego, did you have a church when you got there? And you were in high school, too. So what was your relationship like with Jesus around that age?
So at that point, like when we first moved there, we were still driving back and forth a little bit. Yeah. Like we'd go to the weekends because we were still in the transition. So our first 2 months, I remember we were still driving back to
the desert.
Yeah, to go to Destiny, which was crazy. It was like almost 2 hours driving to go to church. And I was like, okay. And then
you slowly stopped coming with your parents, but your parents would come.
Yeah, just because different things were going on too, like
the high school drama.
It was the high school drama, and I was just like, no one really knew what was going on in my life, and no one really wanted to ask. So I was like, I'm just gonna bounce, you know, because I was like, I'm not gonna entertain it. Mm-hmm. But then it got to the point where I was so hurt, but I would still go to churches when my parents were trying out new churches. We started going to this one.
You don't have to tell me names if you.
Yeah, we started going to one of them, and then we were going there for a bit, but then we just kind of hopped around for a bit, just because the church, like, it was just it could be very toxic very quickly. And then when some churches were finding out that my mom was a pastor, they were like, oh no.
Well, I think too, not just that church environments can be toxic, but once your church hurt, like it's not even the church, it's the consequences of man. I'll say, right. I'll fix that. Right. And it was just, it got to the point where my mom was like, okay, I want you to go, but I did not want to go. Like youth groups, I was like, yeah, well, that's the church that we experience, right? Especially at that age, you're 15 years old. But like, what?
So many transitions were happening, and I went through so many things after moving too, where I was just like, I don't trust anyone. Mm-hmm. So like, we tried a couple different churches. I tried a couple different youth groups, but I just was like, can I just sit with you? Like, if I told my mom, I was like, if I'm going to go to church, can I just sit with you? Because I was rebelling so hard.
Yeah, because at this point, too, it wasn't just like rainbows and daisies and, oh, you had church. It was like you was out living. Mm-hmm. You were going to parties.
I was doing a whole bunch of stuff.
So at the same time that it's like, oh, I don't want to go to church, I'm also living completely opposite of what I've been taught.
Yeah, I was doing that, but I also, like, going through the things I went through, the things that had been done to me, too. I was just like, and the first place I ran was to the church.
Yeah.
Because I was like terrified to tell my mom things that have been done to me and things that have happened to me. I went to the church and they were like, it was your fault. And then I was like, if this is what they're going to tell me when it was not my fault, it was not my choice, and all these things that happened, I was like, I don't want to be a part of it. So I was like, you know.
So there's a big disconnect between you being well involved in a church around 15 and now 26, 27 when you're moving over here. You had not really been well involved in a church. Like, you had gone to you had gone a few Sundays. Even when you and Jerry were dating, I know you guys had gone to a few churches. Yeah. But never, like, invested in ministry again.
No.
So what was your, and genuinely, like, be for real, what was your relationship with Jesus? Like, okay, you turned 18. A lot of stuff happened to you between 15 and 18.
Yeah.
But where was your pulse with, like, your relationship with Jesus? Was it just like, no, forget all this, or I love you, Jesus, this is all confusing? Did you explore other religions? How did you come back to this?
So for me, I've always been like in tune with like being like spiritual, you know, and it was like, but with God, we got spiritual context, but like not like spiritual, but like
you wasn't in tune with the Holy Spirit.
Yes, but a lot of times, just because of the things that I had went through, I ran away because I just felt tainted. I felt disgusting. I felt like I didn't deserve it. But then I knew, like, it's just like I knew there was a deeper love, but I wasn't allowing myself to feel it with any relationship I had. Like, I was like, you were getting very like surface level stuff, like, and I didn't really know like what intimacy was, vulnerability was, like with the Holy Spirit. Even I was just like, I was so afraid just because of the things I had been through. I was like, I'm not going to commit because all the things I've committed to have hurt me. And I was like, it was easier to just be like
a nomad.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm gonna read my Bible. I would always say, I know my relationship, God knows my heart. But then I was just like, girl, I don't know my heart. I don't even know my own heart. So like looking back, I was like, you did not know anything. But it was just like, I wasn't really living the lifestyle. Like, yes, I'd go to church every now and then with my parents. I would do my devotions. Like, I had like devotions that I would do. I'd always do like my phone app and stuff like that. But it was never like.
Do you think it was just to make you feel good? Like, I'm still doing this. I haven't completely walked away.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, it was partial. One, like, I knew there was so many convictions like that I was feeling. And it was just like.
Even when you tried to walk away.
Even when I tried. I was like running, and the Holy Spirit, like, I'm running right next to you, dog. I'm surrounding you. You can't get away from me. And I'm just like, I'm going to try. I'm going to do my best. But it was like, looking back, I was running because I was so hurt, especially like not by the church, but people within church. I was like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, even like when I was like trying to find churches, I was still hesitant. I wasn't fully committing because I was like, if I commit, it's just gonna
same thing's
gonna happen, because it happened so many times. I was just like, I'm just not gonna give my full self to them. I'm not gonna commit because why, you know?
What would you say to somebody who has experienced like extreme church hurt and is running but can't get away from the conviction?
Oh, that's hard. Like, the conviction's there for a reason. I'll say that. There's something that's like, it makes me think of that one song, totally not even like, it's not sanctified, but it's like, every time I try to leave, something keeps pulling me back. Because something was always pulling me back. Yeah. And something, I always felt it in my spirit and in my heart, but it was just like, I always said I was a forgiving person, but then I wasn't forgiving what had happened to me. So when I finally was just like, okay, I think you or Billy had said it in something recently, but it was like, you can't live your future experiences in you can't live it as the past. Like, you have to leave it in the past. It has to be something new. You have to be open-minded. Once I got over that, I was like, okay, maybe I could try this again. Yeah. But it took so long because I was so hurt, and I was so used to hurt that anything that felt good felt wrong. Because I was like, if I felt even a sliver of like peace, I was just like, oh no, let's stay in this hurt, because I was so used to it.
Yeah, you would lean back into that pain.
Just because it was what I knew. Because it was pain after pain after pain, and I would just mask it with something. Like, I would kind of like laugh it off and stuff, but it was still there. Yeah. But I would say, not every place is the same. Not every experience is the same. Don't expect it to be the same. Go in with an open mind and an open heart, because it will surprise you. Yeah. Like if you actually.
Because are you surprised with your ministry experience here compared to your previous ministry?
Yes. Experience? Oh, for sure. I say this all the time. If you would have asked me 5 years ago if I'd be back in ministry, I'd say no.
Or let alone sitting across the chair from you.
This. I would have been like, you're lying.
Yeah, you're crazy.
We not going to do that. But it's just like, I look back at it, I'm just like, I've never been in this, like at this capacity of ministry, and I wouldn't change it. Yeah. But I look back at it all, it took everything that I went through to get here. Mm-hmm. And it's just so wild. Yeah. It's so wild.
There's no running away from him.
I'm telling you, he runs with you. He running right next to you.
That's such a good word.
And I'm like, every time I would try to run away, and I look back, I'm like, he was there in the midst of it all. Like, God surrounds you, and you can't get away from him. People will be like, oh, I walked away from the Lord. I'm like, how? He's still standing there with you. Yeah. Like, if you could actually see him, he'd be like,
right there.
You ran from me? I'm still here. I was trying not to hit the mic. I'm like, ooh. But yeah, it's just, once I realized that I couldn't get away, and plus living with my mom, there was no getting away.
Yeah. So let's give a little breakdown of that too. Okay, so I think your mom has an impact on so many people around her, but people forget that she has a family that she's also impacted. Do you know what I mean? So we could talk here all day on how Auntie Paula has this, and that for everybody else. But instead of those scenarios, instead of all the prophetic words she's given, instead of all the time she's been accurate to everybody else, let's hone in on you and your dad too, and your family and your household, and what that upbringing, how it got you. I think because that is, a praying mom and a praying dad are more dangerous than any other praying people in the body, I think. Yeah. And that's what I think got you here, is your parents that prayed relentlessly for you. And not just your mom, but even your dad, to getting your mom back into the church.
That's a whole thing.
So let's back up. So how long have your parents been married?
It'll be 29 years this month. So
Auntie Paula, or Paula Tricky, Danny Tricky, hey y'all, because I know you're going to watch this, I know you're so proud of your girl. Your mom has an extremely obvious, gift of so many things, but I think there's one thing that she has, and it's just like blatant hunger and awareness of the Holy Spirit. It's not even a matter of like all the prophetic and the can hear this and knows when to call. Like, she's just hungry for the Holy Spirit. Yeah. But at one point she wasn't, and it was Danny Tricky
that brought her back,
that dragged her back into the church. If he was going to be with her, she had to be in church.
Like, it's crazy because my mom grew up in church, but I don't know exactly what it was, but she kind of said the same thing I did. Like, if this is what church is like, I don't want to be a part of it. And was just like, deuces. And then her and my dad started dating, but then my dad was like, if we're going to be together, I need you to come to church.
Period, pretty much. Daddy boy.
And I was like, oh. And she was...
honestly, you often hear with women requiring that of men.
But you don't hear it reversed. So my dad was like my dad was the one that brought her to the church I grew up in.
So before. I think a lot of people too like to give credit to the manifestations of the gift, but also forget to give credit to the people who work on the underground. And I think Danny Tricky did a service to the people that were assigned to Paula's life by making sure that he held the standard of scripture in order for her to,
and he was very keen on, like, because he was going to Calvary Chapel a lot, and he just loved it. And when he said that to my mom was like, okay. And then
I'm in love.
But then my mom went, and she said it just from the first time.
Changed your life.
Yeah. And now it's just insane. And growing up with that, like, as a child, like, it's funny because when people would come over sometimes, my mom would be praying in her room. Like, you would just hear, like, her...
I remember getting to your house.
Speaking in tongues. Like, when people weren't used to that, I'd be like, don't worry, it's fine. Like, I'm like, this is just a normal Tuesday, you know? Yeah. But, like, for me, it was just, like, normal. But then it got to the point of, like, when you're a teenager, you're just like, okay, mom. Like, okay. But then I look back, and I'm just like, okay, mom.
You're like, thank God, mom.
I thank you. Because there were times when she'd be like, I don't know if you should go there. And I'd be like, Mom...
I don't know if you should be friends with them.
Exactly. And I look back, because at the time I was just like, Mom.
Yeah.
Back off. Yeah. Like, come in my style. Don't embarrass me in front of my friends. Like, it was very much like that. But I look back and I'm like, no. There's so many things that could have happened. Or the times where I look back, when my mom would be like, don't do it, and I did it anyways, the outcome was terrible. And, like, even just lying. You can't lie to that woman.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
She knew everything. She knows everything. She knows it. And I'm just like...
Which I think it speaks volumes, not just to taking your family to church on Sunday, but living a life with Jesus Monday to Saturday.
Yes.
Like being in prayer and your kids seeing that does so much more than you taking them to church on Sunday. And like living out what is taught on Sunday, Monday through Saturday is so much more impactful than just an hour's church service.
Yeah. And I look back at it and I'm so appreciative because and not even just my mom, but seeing my grandparents too, like the way they were, it's like,
it's incredible. So you have generational healthy marriages to look at.
And it's, I'm so thankful for it, like because of my grandparents, my great grandparents, and just the stories I've heard from before. Like, it's incredible. But we've always had like a line of fiery women, and even the men in my family too. Like my great grandfather, I think he was a deacon.
Yeah.
But I only knew him like for a little bit. Yeah, but like, just having that foundation. Not many people get it, but it was such a blessing. At the time, I was just like, my mom's so strict. I can't do anything. But now I look back and I'm like, no, I thank God she is the way she is and the things that she set up for us, and my dad too, just the way they were. Like, I'm thankful I was in church on a Sunday instead of waking up somewhere.
Yeah. Waking up to play more sports or to be at a friend's house or anything.
I'm thankful because it kept me out of a lot. But I also like growing up in the church, my moral compass too, like
loud and clear.
I'm telling you, the conviction I felt like for so many things, I was just like I knew the Holy Spirit was like, there were a lot of times where he was like, Brianna Rose. And I was just like, I'm not listening. You're not here. Yeah. You're not here right now. Leave a message. Yeah. Like, but he's just like, I'm here. Yeah. But it's just because of what I saw growing up. And I'm so thankful for that.
It's fruit, dude. I mean, it's true. When you train your children up in the ways of the Lord, they try to depart, but they shall not. Like we try. I try to depart, but like you so won't. Hard. And I think too, like what threatens the enemy is not that we pick up and bring our kids to church on a Sunday. It's when you live it out during the week that threatens the enemy. And what you had different in your house than what I had in my house was your parents lived it out Monday to Saturday. You know what I mean? And of course, don't get me wrong, my parents prayed and they enjoyed Jesus and they were all that stuff like that. But there was a very clear difference between when you're around church people and when you're not around church people.
Oh, yeah.
And I think what I appreciate about your mom and your dad is that who they are around church people and not church people is exactly the same.
That's who they are.
And I will say this too. I think I learned a lot from the people around me, like my parents' friends, like Pastor Melissa and Sergio, healthy, love Jesus, like we're the same people. Whether or not you liked that, it wasn't in question of if they were integral, if they were the same person. Like integrity is a breakdown of the word integer, which means one, singular number. So when somebody has integrity, that means they're the same person all the time.
And they're doing right.
The same, all the whoever time. It is, whatever that is.
Yeah, they're just.
Like if you display yourself as a crazy person and you're crazy all the time, at least you are the same person all the time.
You are the same thing.
The issue we have in today's church is we don't have people of integrity, which is being the same person all the time.
They have multiple versions.
Yeah, multiple versions of themselves. So when I'm around my friends that don't know me for going to church, I'm this version of me. But then when I'm around my family. It's like turning on and turning off, Yeah, when I'm around my family, I'm this version. And when I'm around my church friends, I'm this version. And when I'm around my boss, I'm this person. And you have so many different facets to you. So it's exhausting to keep that up. And that's why the on and off switch exists.
It's so hard, especially when you see it. It's just like, it's tiring.
Oh, dude, that's why the Bible says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Not because you're all these different people and I don't know what I'm going to be. But it's literally because you're so exhausted from trying to keep up this life and that life.
Having so many facades is just...
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
And it's unstable and it raises unstable people. So I had a very long extended season of being unstable in my emotions and in my outfits of rage and my breakouts. And it's because I had seen instability. And so what I think is unique in your situation is your mom didn't give you double-mindedness. She gave you a sound mind, a centered mind, an integral mind. And so even when your situations were unstable, you weren't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's so unique. And I think you watching the faith of your parents is really what catapulted you to the faith decision that even got you here.
Oh, for sure.
So let's talk about that. Some people know the story, some people don't. Like people hear us mention it briefly on Sundays and when I intro stuff and when I talk about you guys, but I don't think anybody has really heard the whole thing. So it's 2020.
2020.
End of 2020, around the end of 2020, we had just announced, we had known for a year, but we had just announced that we were going to move to Fredonia, New York to start Gospel Church. Mm-hmm. And I get a message on Instagram after not talking to Brianna for 10 years. And she sends me her number and she says, "Can you call me?" And I was like, I was sitting down. I will never forget this as long as my days exist. I will never forget this. And I'm going to tell the angels in heaven when I get up there. I was sitting down in my little sister's apartment. She had just had her baby a few months before. And I'm like spending quality time with them and like all this stuff. I'm going through IVF. Like there were just so many things happening. And you messaged me and I'm like, I'm having family time. Like, and I'm really good at like, family time.
Separating.
You know, being able to be attentive. And I'm like, I'm not going to call her. I just was my knee-jerk reaction. Like, maybe, I don't know. What I was like, at first, my first thought was like, what if she like is in the desert and, needs a connect for something or whatever. And I was like, I'll call her in like an hour.
You know what? Because before we moved, I was like, hey, do you have any like places recommendations for
living in LA?
Yeah.
So, I was like, maybe it's, something about that. So I'll call her in a little bit. And like, as that thought is forming, the Holy Spirit just chops it in half and he was like, get up off your butt and call her right now. And I was like, actually, Lee, I'm going to call her right now. And she's like, okay. And I walk outside and as the phone is ringing, the Holy Spirit was literally like, they're joining you. And I was like, oh no, there's no way. There's no way. Cause who's they? I only know Brie. Like I never met Jerry. Mm-hmm. I didn't even, I had seen you go to You're a Filipino Man, but I did not know who he was. So I'm like, I literally was like, there's no way. Like, this would be out, like this, I don't even have a word for it. Mm-hmm. It would be astronomical if this was what was going to happen. So, that was my setup to getting on the phone with you. What was happening before that to even lead you to this?
So, before this, it was crazy because we were living in LA, COVID 2020. We were engaged, like, a totally different lifestyle before. Like, for me, I was just, like, still, God knows my heart, like, kind of vibe. But I was just, like, I didn't know my own heart.
God knows my heart, but I know the Bible.
It was, like, ooh. But we were, like, in 2020, a lot of things were happening, and we were talking about it. And I was just, like, I told Jerry, by 2022, and I look back, I should be specific. You got to be specific. You got to be specific with the Holy Spirit.
Jesus said you left out the details.
I know. I was like, by 2022, I want to live in New York. Okay. And he said, okay. And then we were just looking at stuff. And this was like later 2020.
So it was very clear you were going to go to New York, but you just didn't know where.
When or where. So first I was looking Brooklyn because I was just like, Brooklyn's a vibe. I love Brooklyn. Like, I was like, okay. And then I was like, I don't know. But it just didn't, like, it felt good, but it didn't feel right. So then
wait, hold on. That felt good, but it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Can we just break down that that's a reality?
That is. Like, people will chase the feeling and not the reality.
Confirmation.
Yes. So I was
just
like,
a word for you. That's a word, dog. Some of y'all are feeling good, but you ain't feeling right.
I got goosies from that.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay. Whoo.
Like, you feel good in what you're doing. Like, it feels good, but you know it ain't right.
See, because it's that conviction, too.
Because it ain't going to leave you. I'm chasing you.
He got his running shoes on. He ain't leaving you. He said, I stretched today.
Runner. He's a track star. Okay, sorry.
So 2020, I was like, okay, Brooklyn. And then I was even looking like Queens. I was looking Lower East Side, Manhattan, like, even like Harlem. And I was
Jersey, Hoboken.
I was like, okay, I guess I'll look in Jersey. But I was just like, okay, no. And then I went to Syracuse and I was like.
Just like all kind of working your way down the New York map.
Well, and I was just like, okay, it's cute over here. Looked Albany, I was like, Rochester. All right. I looked Rochester. Rochester, I was like, oh, this is, like, I was just like, Jerry, it's a vibe. Like,
vibe, it's a little scary, but it's a vibe.
But, like, there was this one, like, brick, like, warehousey apartment. And I was like, that's, like.
Dope. Yeah.
And then I saw Buffalo, and I was like, okay. And then I was going down the map. So this was, like, within a week. Like, each day I was looking, like, in a new place. And then I was like, okay, what's Silver Creek? I get to Dunkirk. I was like, I don't know what the heck this place is.
This is on Zillow. You're kind
of but then I got to Dunkirk and I was just like, nothing's here. I don't know what this is.
There's like 6 houses on
Zillow.
I know. $50,000 and they don't show up for the floor.
I know. I was just like, the wind gonna blow that. Like,
yeah.
And I was just like, no. Literally the next day, you guys posted about going to Fredonia, New York. I was like,
Dunkirk and Fredonia, yeah.
And I was like, what? And I looked where Fredonia was, and I saw it right next to Dunkirk, and I was just like,
there's no way.
I was like, No, because
you weren't even living like in the fullness of the spirit.
I wasn't
walking with.
I wasn't, but I like there were things like where I knew it was God, and I was just like no, and he was like,
yes,
and I was like I called my mom. I was like, Mom, so
this is gonna sound crazy,
and then she was like, what's up? And I tell her everything. I was just like, I've been looking, because my mom knew I was looking. I said, Mom, by 2022, I want to be in New York. Like, I was like, we were keeping her posted. Yeah. And then we were just looking, and she was like, okay. And then you guys posted. I was like, Mom, so I don't know if you've seen this, but Billy and Randy are starting a church in New York. She said, and I was just like,
and that's her that I already know.
My mom, if you know my mom, she'll be like, because my mom knew. And I was just like, this is crazy. And she was like, what? And I was just like, God is telling me, I'm pretty sure it's God, because it wouldn't be anything else, that we are supposed to be there. And she was just like, And I was just like, what do you mean, She was just like, I know. And
why'd you tell me?
I was just like, she was like,
but she's always been good at that.
She's so obedient. And she's like, you had to come to it on your own. And I was just like, Mom, I don't know what to do. She's like, you need to call Randy. I was like, I ain't got her number. She was like, I do. She was like, you have her on Instagram. I know you do, because you asked her about moving to LA. And I was like, And she was like, give her your number. And I said, Mom, Mom, I can't. And she was just like, do it. Yeah. She was like, you can't let fear hold you back. And I said, okay. And it took me, I'm not even going to lie, I was talking to Jerry because I was like crying. I was crying before.
Trembling.
And I was just like, okay. And then I'm not even going to lie, it took me like a good 30 minutes after I got off the phone with my mom to like even message you. Some
people would take weeks, dude.
To even message you. And I was just like, okay. And I was talking because Jerry was, he was on his computer. You were working. And I was just like, this sounds crazy. And dude.
Yeah, how did you explain this to him?
But the thing is, he was starting to be around my family, and he was new. He just knew. And I was like, Jerry, I have to call her. And he was like, okay.
So how did Jerry react when you told him, there's this girl that I used to know back in the day, and they do ministry, and they're moving to New York, and I think we should go?
He was kind of like, what? At first. And then I was just like, no, I really do think so. But he also heard the conversation with my mom, and he was like, okay. And I was just, but I also said like, hey, we were engaged. And I was like, if this is if you don't think so, like, we're not gonna go. Yeah. But then I call you, and you were just like, wait, what? Yes. What? And it was just like a kind of.
What do you remember from that conversation?
I remember literally like 5 minutes. I don't even know if it was 5 minutes. It was like right after I messaged you. It was like pretty quick. I see my phone ringing, and I was like, oh gosh, this is real. I was like, you really gonna make me do this? And then I answer, and you were just kind of like, hello? Like, just. And I was like, hey, how are you? You're like, I'm good. What's going on? And I was just, and I think the first thing I said was like, this is going to sound crazy.
And I already knew.
And then you were like, huh? And I was like, but I think we're supposed to start this church with you. And you were like, I just remember silence for a bit. And then
I think I was tripping because I was like the first thought was like, oh, this. But then it was like, when Mary told you the phone was ringing, and the Holy Spirit was like, they're doing this with you. And I was silent, like, oh, I can actually hear him.
And it's crazy because you were like, okay. And then you were asking like, where, because you were still here, like not here. You were still California, and you were like, we're leaving in a few weeks. And you said, okay. And you were like, I truly appreciate this, but I want you guys to come out and see if this is actually what you're supposed to do, because you were saying a lot of people will say it. But
say that.
You were like, a lot of people will say it, but once they actually come face to face with it, they're not going to commit. Yep. And I was like, okay. And then we ended up planning everything to go. And right before, when we were planning, we got COVID.
I remember for the first time.
And it was during like the height of like the major, and it was like, I thought Jerry was going to die at that point. Like, I was like, I felt terrible. He felt terrible. We could not move. And I was just like, devil, you ain't going to hold us back right now. Like, we're trying to, like, there were so many things trying to block us from coming here to visit. We get better. Everything gets cleared. And I told Jerry, I was like, okay, we just got to pray. Like we were just like, okay, we're going to fast. We're going to do what we need to do. We're just going to pray and just be open to it. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I told him, I was like, if you don't feel it at all, or if God just tells you no,
something otherwise, then
we're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. We get here late that night. Mm-hmm. And you were like, you guys could stay with us. Okay. We get here late that night. The next day we were out. It was snowy and stuff. But then the end of that day, we were in the room, the guest room. And I was like, so what do you think? And it was just day one pretty much. And he was like, we're supposed to be here. Oof. And I was like, I know. Like in my head, I was like, I know we're supposed to be here. But if my husband says, my fiance at the time, but I was like, if he says otherwise, I'm not going to split the household, you know? Mm-hmm. So he said, yeah. But I was like, okay. And that shifted everything. We were supposed to get married in September 2021. You got married. We moved our wedding up. Like the way we did it, we shifted everything. Like, you know, just the lifestyle we were living. We were like, we don't want to move there. Yeah, you guys recommitted to a lot of stuff. You recommitted to purity. Yes. You guys recommitted to faith together, building your relationship with Jesus together, starting your marriage right. And we said we will not move across this country to start a church, help start a church if we're not unified. Yeah, yeah. And like having the covenant. Like just like we were set on that. And it shifted so much because when we started telling people, like I know some people were like, what? You're crazy. Yeah, and I was just like, it's only crazy till it happens. Yeah, so let me ask you this, because I think this faith part is where a lot of people bow out of their call, is when they don't have something certain on the other side. They settle for other avenues. Say that. Because I remember when we were telling Pastor Obed that we were going to move, and they offered like a doubling of our, like more finances. Now, mind you, this was a test. They were like, we'll double your salary. Will you stay? And Billy immediately was like, no. And Pastor Obed said, okay, good. Because I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to be, I could dangle money in front of you. And make you stay. And then you're not really called. Mm-hmm. So we told you guys too from the beginning, y'all can come. We will give you all of the space to be creative, to grow. We can guarantee you one thing, growth and a closer adoration for Jesus. Those are the only things we can offer you, is growing in Jesus and changing a community. Mm-hmm. We can't offer you anything else. We wish we could have offered you this, and that, but we can't offer you any of those things. So you guys were moving, no job, no money, no guarantee of anything. Nothing. See, how did you still do it, even though you knew there was no promise that you were going to get anything? So at the time I was working remotely. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, like that was okay. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I could take this. Yeah. But then we were like, okay, how is this supposed to happen? Even like from getting married to getting here, paying for your moving expenses, like finding a house, like everything. I was like, it was just amazing, and I'm still in awe of how it happened, because once we said yes, all the doors opened. Sis, talk about it. Like if we would have said no, so many things I still think would have pushed us here. I think we still would have got here. God's gonna get you either that, or He's gonna call someone else. Oof. That scares me. And that's, for me, I was like, I look back and I'm like, what? My no would have been costly too. Costly. And I'm just like, looking, that gives me chills. Like, I got goosies right now. Shoot. But like, I look at it and I'm just like, okay, because we were like, how are we going to pay for the wedding? Pay to move, find a house to live in, because like security deposit in first month, everything. And I was just like, okay, like moving everything, like getting our stuff moved, driving across the country, finding places to stay along the way, like everything. I'm just in awe, because like I was like, I don't know how we're gonna pay for. We did the U-Haul U-Box thing, and it was like $3,500. Like I remember I was like, okay, God, I just trust in you. And we were also like, we were doing like a prayer fast, and we were just like, okay, but we were also reading the book of John at the time too, like daily, and just different things. And I remember one day I was like, Jerry, this thing is gonna cost $3,500. We don't got that like right now. The next day, one of our wedding gifts, someone blessed us with $1,000. I was like, okay. And then the next day someone blessed us with $1,000. And I was just like, that didn't happen till after your yes.
Until all other bets were eliminated.
Yeah, because we were trying to figure all these things out right beforehand. But once we said yes, we were like, okay, we're doing it. Well, after we visited and said yes, so many things lined up because we didn't even have a wedding venue. When we were here visiting, my mom was like, hey, there's a place. It's only going to be like $1,500. And it was like...
Stunning.
Yeah. Stunning. Yeah. But it was just amazing. Like, my mom was here. We FaceTimed. I was like, okay, all right, got that. And then just so many things lined up, like getting the U-Box, getting... like, even when we were driving across the country, people were sending us money every day for, like, a hotel or for food.
I think what happens is a faith of that level. People can't help but gravitate to it because they think, oh, they're doing it. I could never do that. I could never do that. So I'll just support you because I just can't do it. I could never do what you do.
It's only crazy until it happens. I keep saying that. Like, it was just mind blowing. After our yes, so many things were just happening, like pushing us here. Like,
and all we've seen is faithfulness.
And it's mind blowing because every time, even with all the things, I was going through so much too with my family because we had lost so many, like, back to back to back. We've lost someone in our family since 2017, 1 or 2 people each year. And in the midst of that, like, even it was hard for me, 1, 2, because my grandpa, cancer. And I knew the end was coming. And, like, it was so hard to leave that because I'm such a family person. I'm so family oriented. Like, and it's crazy because we talked recently about this, but it took me losing those people to push me to God. And, like, I will say I was putting my family first before God. Yeah. And you can't do that. Because I was like, these are the people that are here for me. These are the people that always show up for me. These are the people who, you know. But then, like, God was like,
I'm here just as
He's
faithful.
Like, I'm faithful. You wouldn't have them without me. Like, I'm always here.
I'm the door.
Yes. Yeah. And it took, like, looking back at that, like, it took so many things. Because, like, even when my aunt died last year, I found out at church. Yeah. I could have easily left.
Oh my gosh.
But I went to the altar. And it's just, when you say yes, your yes is going to have
a lot of no's attached to it.
No's and so much weight and even some pain attached to it. But I look back, I would not change that. I'm so glad for my yes because it opened up so many other yeses. And I look back, if I would have said no, so many other yeses for people wouldn't have happened. Like, their paths could have been stunted. Their walk wouldn't have grown because, like, they needed their door open from my door being opened. Yeah. And I'm just like...
Yeah, I think God entrusts us with keys to other people's doors.
Yes.
And what you don't realize is you have a keychain that God gave you with keys on it. And if you keep saying no, there are doors and windows and all this stuff waiting to be unlocked with what you got on your keychain. And the sad thing is people wait too long, and so God's like, I'll take that back. Thank you.
Give it to somebody else.
Let me find somebody else.
And that's terrifying.
Oh, well, this is what I tremble about, dude. I tremble about getting to heaven and God going, this is what I had assigned for you.
Yes.
But your faith level, your fear, your worry that I wouldn't do what I said I would do, what I promised I would do, this is what you missed out on. Because you were a little bit nervous, because you just didn't have enough faith. And I think your guys' story of moving over here has impacted our entire community. Like, it's one thing for the pastors to move and for them to be, like, we're nailed to this for life. Like, no matter how far we go, where God takes us next, we're nailed to this. This is what we have committed our life to. Anybody else who says yes after that, to me, is so radical, dude. Like, your guys' yes means so much more than you know.
Dude, and for us, too, like, our yes, being able to move away, it was terrifying moving away from our family, but I will say it's one of the best things that happened for us for our marriage because we didn't have to listen to the opinions of others. We didn't have to.
You got foundation.
Yeah, we were able to build our family.
Yeah. Your value system,
we want it.
Your traditions.
And it's been so amazing being able to, like, because looking back from when we were dating, it was heavily influenced by our parents. I can say that. Like, just the things that they were saying and just different things from both sides. It was heavily influenced by that. Even to when we were engaged, it was still
heavily
influenced by other things. And when we moved here, it was just us. Like, yes, we knew you guys, but I was like, yes, I knew you, but I didn't know you.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is...
We had gone through so much between 15 and 27,
yes.
That
so I was like, I don't know these people. Like, I knew you, but I didn't know y'all. So I was like, okay. So all I really had was my husband and God. And God was like, okay, now that I took everything out, all the distractions and everything, what are you going to do now? Are you going to come to me and are you going to build our relationship and build your family, or are you going to keep running? And I
resist.
And I was just like, I'm on the other side of the country, dog. I can't run no more. Yeah, like, where am I going to run? Yeah. The creek?
The creek.
And it's just like, it got to the point where I was just like, I'm tired of, I got asthma. I can't run that, Mom. I can't.
Yeah.
I got tired. And it's just like, when you finally just say yes, my mind is still blown like at this yes. And I'm like, yes, it's been hard, but that yes has been worth it. And I'm telling you, not everything felt good, but it felt right.
Yeah.
It felt so right, and it feels right.
Yeah.
And it's just, when you have that peace about it too, and you just know, you know.
Yeah, nothing can buy that. Yeah. And I think it's so crazy too, because like you said, when you first moved here, we didn't know each other. Like, there was this unique part that we know the innermost parts of each other. Like, who you are growing up in your childhood is, I think, who you will always be in some sense. I'm not talking about your pain and your trauma, but like your knacks.
Your
like
inner child,
your little things about you that
your
just,
quirks and stuff. Yeah.
And so I think that was unique, that like we knew those things, and I think that was what was so comforting. Like, that's what I know, and I tell you all the time. Like, God knew I needed you more than I knew I needed you.
Same.
Like, I think about this season of being here, and I'm literally like, before I even moved, and before we moved, before you called me, before all of that, before any of this process started happening, when we decided we were going to move over here, I was like, one of the first few things I started praying for was, there were many things, so don't get me caught up on this, but there were the few personally was like, I need friends. Like, I have my sister, which thank God she's one of my best friends, but like, I'm an extrovert. I am like, talk to me all day. I want to hang out. I want to go catch a vibe. I want friends but like, I want a lot of things, and I want a lot of people in my life, but I want friends that I can dig deep with Jesus
and do life
about. Like, I want friends that are going to go through the gritty with me. I want people that are not like just here in my life briefly. I want people that like I'm going to build my life with, not just my ministry with, not just my family with, but my personal life. Like, I want people that I'm going to have lasting friendship with far after this season is gone, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's just crazy to me that, like, yes, he's brought me a lot of other incredible friends. Shout out to my girls. But I feel like God knew I needed somebody that I already felt safe with. And of course I didn't know you in all these intense ways, but like, there was some sort of safety in God bringing your childhood friend around.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's so unique that me, you, and Sam were together at the start of this, which Sam is one of our childhood best friends as well. So it blows my mind that he brought around me like the safest people. You, Sam, and my sister Mariah. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy to me. And what I tell you all the time, what I like so deeply appreciate, and if you're listening and you're like, and maybe you're involved in church and you happen to be friends with your senior pastor, like friends, like they're not just, you know, involved in your life, like in leadership and in small groups and stuff, but like you really have found like friendship in them. I will tell you the best way you can support them in the way that you have done that I've never experienced in my whole life of ministry is you can honor and come under their leadership on a Sunday, but you can be their friend on a Monday. And I think the fact that you have done that and you have been capable and been humble and prideless enough to do that, I go places all over the world, you know. And what I talk about you is not your freaking outrageous ability to get on a stage and have never led worship before and do it. I talk about how unique it is to have somebody in your community that loves your family and comes under your leadership, but can go to the mall with you on Monday. But when you get a direction to be given, like, hey, we're not doing that, we're cutting this, you can't do this, you can't. Like, you're so quick to be so humble, Brie. Like, I don't understand. Like, I have searched for years to find something like that, and the fact that, like, God brought somebody like you, dude, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. And I really do want to spend this last portion of like our talking about friendship. And not just like how amazing our friendship is, because it's great, y'all. You ain't gonna find it nowhere. But I do want to just talk about like that value. Like you've had a lot of friends. And I've had a lot of friends. And you've had great friends. You have great friends at home. You have incredible friends. Like, I think it's so amazing to watch yours and Jerry's friendships with people. But I think there's something different about having a faith friendship.
It's different.
It's so different,
and especially, like, it's just, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and let me just say this, because I think that a lot of my friends that are not like faith friendship, I love them. I will up for them. I am there for them. But a lot of those friendships usually tend to comfort my uncomfort. They tend to caress and welcome my like, it's okay if you're, when I'm uncomfortable, they want to like make me comfortable.
They want to coddle.
And like, and which is so awesome sometimes. With faith friendships, real faith friendships, it don't roll like that, dog.
Because like the thing is, a lot of people are scared of healthy confrontation.
Yeah.
You need healthy confrontation. You need those people, and you guys have said it, and it's the best thing ever. Slow, go, and no. Like, you need somebody to be like, nah, that ain't right. You need to stop that. Or, hey, maybe take your time. Or, okay, no, you need to do that. Mm-hmm. And for me, I appreciate that because, like, the only people who corrected me before was, like, my mother, you know? And I'd be like, Ma.
Yeah.
But like, now I'm, like, thankful for it. But, like, when you have that healthy communication with one another and you can correct one another, people are afraid to do that, especially in today's, like, society. It's just everyone like tiptoes in friendships.
Everybody wants to say whatever makes you happy.
Everyone wants to make you comfortable, and that's
the biggest thing is like everybody says, not everybody, a lot of people say, I would just want you to be happy. I want to support whatever makes you happy.
No, I want to be healthy.
Thank you.
I want to be healthy.
That's what I was praying for. For friends that want me to be healthy over me being temporarily happy.
See, and then once you're healthy, that true joy will come eventually. But you have to be healthy first. You got to cut out the dysfunction. You got to cut out a lot of stuff. There's a lot of pruning you got to do. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people are afraid to prune. And a lot of people are... It's just like, no one wants to help mold it. They just want to be like, okay, this is what you got. This is what I got. Let's just see what we can do. Mm-hmm. Instead of like, no, this is what you got. We need to cut this, and this out. We need to like, the thing is like with us, we keep each other in check. Yeah. That's what it is. Like for me, like I never would have thought I'd have the friendship that we have. Because when I was first moving, and I was like, okay, we're just going to help them start the church. I was praying for friendships. But I didn't know how deep it was going to go. Because in my head, I was like, okay, you guys are going to be our pastors. And if we're, we'll do which
let's talk about that too. Like relationships with your pastors before.
I never had it. I didn't have it. It was just kind of like, hey, how you doing? Mm-hmm. Okay, bye. Mm-hmm. It was I never felt like I could actually like unload and just be like comfortable. Whereas like with us, I'm so appreciative of it because we went from being friends 10 years ago to not knowing anything. And we knew the stuff that we knew, but we started fresh. And starting fresh while building a church away, thousands and thousands of miles away from our families, and all we have was each other. Like, it's either like we're going to work it out or we're just going to
be lonely.
Yes. And I'm so thankful because like I can have a mentor as well as a friend, as well as someone who can correct me, as well as someone who can lead me, like with, like spiritually, and lead me, who can still lead me, and I'm totally fine with. Because before I'd be like, not with you, but like I'd be like, what you trying to tell me to do, like But now I'm like, no, like if you're showing me something, it's probably because I need to correct something, or now I'm okay with being corrected where I wasn't before.
What do you think changed?
A lot of it had to do with me, and it was.
Do you think it's like if I'm out here, I might as well dive in all the way?
Well, it also has to do with like, so with the things that I've been through, and then I went to a church and did this. Like I've talked to you about this, but I went to. It was a workshop. They didn't call it a conference. They call it a workshop because we're working on stuff.
To put in work.
Yes, we need to work on our dysfunction. We need to work on the things we've been through. We need to work through it. So I was like, okay, I mean, I guess I'll sign up for this. And, and then my mom was like, maybe you should do it. And then it was like a 3-day thing.
Yeah.
And before that, I didn't realize how numb I was, because everything I had went through and the things I currently at the time was going through, I was shoving it down. And I was just like, it's easier to just shove it down, put a smile on my face, because I was a performer. I was like, I don't need people worrying about me, because growing up and the way we grew up too, it was like, get over it, move on.
Yeah.
And you don't let it was not in this house. Don't let them see you cry. It was just, that was the culture we grew up in, especially like in the desert too. Like it was like fight or flight. Like you just gotta go. Moving, yeah. You don't let them see you weak. And it was that, plus like I didn't want anyone to see me differently, especially when you're told by people who were like, for me, there were people a part of the church telling me like, you're a disgrace. You should be ashamed. You're disgusting. You deserve the things that happened to you. You start believing those things, and you like, even if it's just like, I would always say, nah, it's not true, but I felt it. I'd be like, you're beautiful. No. And inside I'd be like, I would try to be like, you're beautiful. It's okay. And I would always tell people it's okay to cry, but I wasn't crying. It's okay to feel these things, but I wasn't doing it. Yeah. And then once I got to that point of like that workshop and everything put in my face, I was like, and they were like, you can't run out of here. You have to face it. I was like, oh my gosh. And once I faced it, because I wasn't even correcting myself either.
You were allowing yourself to just do whatever, be whatever, say whatever.
Yeah, because I was just like, well, it's my life.
Yep.
I'm going to do what I want, how I want. God know my heart. Like, but no. So then after that, I cried for the first time in probably like 10 years from that. Like, so just because of that workshop. Yeah. And then once I allowed myself to feel things and actually communicate and do these things, and like after that workshop, I was still in school, so I was taking a communications class too. So that aligning with like what we were talking about in class and then that workshop was so crazy, just because conversation and corrections alone
was a big part.
It was a big part, and it shifted so much for me because I was actually open to hearing from people. Like I always heard from people, but I never let it in. Like it was very much like
cool, but I was out the window once you walk away.
Yeah. And then to the point where once I finally felt like everything like exploded, because I finally allowed myself to feel. And then it got to the point where I was like, okay, what do you need to do to change so you no longer feel this? What can you shift? What can you say? What can you hear? What can you do? And it started, that was like the shift of it. And then at the time, Jerry and I had broken up too. We were together for like 4 years, and then we broke up for a year. And so that was a big thing too. So I was like, okay, trying to like realize what I wanted at that point. I was just like, okay, what do I want? Because before I was just kind of just going through life like,
whatever's happening.
If it happens, it happens. And being diagnosed with MS and all these other things just on top of it, I was just like, in my head before this, I was like, I'm not going to make it to 25. Like, I just didn't think it. And then I got to the point where I was like, don't think that way. Correct your thinking. And then once I started to allow other people to correct me, it changed me so much, because I'm like, it's not that they're trying to tell me what to do. It's because they want the best for me.
It's because they actually love you.
And they care about me. And I had to go through everything I went through up to that workshop to realize it. And then, but when we got here, I was like, okay, God, you told me what to do. You want this. But then in my head, I was just like, okay, because I was terrified, especially because you and Sam were tight through it all. Like, so for me, I was like this girl that left. Coming in. I was so scared. But then the way you guys were, because I know you guys were hesitant too at first. Like, it was kind of just like.
I feel like I wasn't. I feel like I was like, yo, we got two breathing bodies that want to start a church with us. Let's take them, baby.
It's just, then it got to the point where it was just like, okay, either we be friends or we just go through. But it just happened so naturally.
Yeah, I feel like I was not hesitant at all. I was like, this is crazy. I think that the greatest gift God gave our friendship was reintroduction.
Ooh, yeah.
Like, let me reintroduce myself.
Because Allow me to reintroduce
myself.
Really
though. Because when I was 16 years old, I was a little jerk.
I am no longer who I was at that age. My
dominant, loud, demanding personality had to become convicting, clear, slow to speak. Very different than, like, same underlying experience and underlying personality trait, but much more shaped. Do you know what I mean? And so I feel like the greatest gift that God can give you in friendship is a window of reintroduction, even if that doesn't mean a 10-year gap and reintroducing, but taking the privilege of reintroducing ourselves because it also let us reset the standard of what our
Yes.
friendship was going to be.
And we set expectations
Yeah,
too.
like-
and we made them vocal.
Yeah.
Like we said it out loud because like we say this all the time too. You cannot set expectations on people
That you don't communicate.
because then that's not fair to them.
That's manipulation.
Yes.
Expecting something of
Yes.
somebody you don't tell them.
And if they don't know, how are they supposed to like rise up to it? Like,
Yeah.
like I know with past friendships, I've had that. Like, for example, if I'm waiting for somebody, like I know for me, I'd be like, hey, like if I'm running late, I'll be like, hey, I'm running late. Like this is how it was before. But if sometimes people would not text me, and we're supposed to meet at like 5, and then I'm like, here, I'm like
5:10, 5:15, 5:30.
I'm like, yo, and then I like call them like, where you at? They're like, oh, I just, I'm running a little late, and I'm like,
yeah.
but whereas I'm the person, I'm like, you should have told me, but then I'm like, they wouldn't have known that I want to know if they're okay. Like I got to,
And common sense is not common in today's age.
common sense is not common. It's not taught. People don't always know.
Yeah.
And so like when we set those expectations and like not even just setting expectations, but we constantly check in.
Yeah, I think too, like, well, we made it clear. And I think I also walked into this season with a really strong conviction of what kind of friends I needed.
Yeah.
Like, if we can't talk about Jesus, if we can't talk about the Bible, like, I get it. We're going to get to the correction. We're going to get to all that stuff. But if we can't really have these conversations about what God is speaking to me about, I would gladly have you in my life, but you probably won't be my friend.
You won't be like inner circle.
Not even that.
No, you won't be like,
yeah.
no,
like,
I know. Yeah.
I know. I understand what we're talking about. It's like, I just need to know that if you're around me, we're going deep. And if we're not going deep, you're not around me. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, let's play at the shallow end and enjoy like, oh, this is fun. But like when I need to go dig deep, when I'm facing life, when I am really, really asking God to speak to me, I need to know that my friends are going to agree and believe with me, because we're carrying a weight with our yes, and not like, oh, the weight of being senior pastors, but the weight of a yes for a community.
Yes.
Same weight you're carrying. A yes for a community is like, no, I need to be around people that are going to like study the Bible with me, that will go through the book of Jonah when I suggest going through the book of Jonah. Like, I need people that are going to do that with me. And that's not an expectation that only pastors should have for their friends. It's anyone. Christ follower, that says like, I want to grow. Well, you need people around you that are going to grow. Like, don't expect to grow and not have people that want, and have people around you that don't want to grow.
Like if you,
like the Bible says, if you want to be wise, be around people. If you don't want to be wise, be around unwise people.
And you say this all the time. Look at your friends, see your future. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Yeah, and it's like, if you have people that want to stay stagnant, do you think you're going to grow? And I always say this too, not everyone wants to elevate. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to get people who are trying to go up with you. And I'm not just saying like success or anything, but that are just trying to have a healthy life. Like, like not everyone wants that. And for me before, because I didn't realize how much attention I was seeking. Like, I would just kind of let anyone into my proximity because I was like, I care so much. I love people, like, but I looked around, I was like, not all of y'all are my friends. Mm-hmm. Like, I was the person I was like, I'm your ride or die, but were they mine? Mm. And I'm just like,
yeah.
And it's just, you can't find that everywhere. Like, you can't.
You have to prayerfully ask God to show them who they are.
Yeah.
And I think too, like, and Billy and I were talking about this in the podcast we did last week, which is like, there are basic things I think that are like very clear to look for in friendship that we just kind of overlook. And I understand, like, there are people that are going to be in your life. There are people in my life that I consider like friends and acquaintances that don't live the same life as me at all. That doesn't bother me. But I know in my like inner part, like my inner man, if I'm really needing people around me, like who I'm going to call when I need somebody to believe with me, who I'm going to reach out to when like I'm feeling really frustrated, that's very different than who I'll just go hang out with. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so those people, to me, I have a list of expectations. Like, and it's not, oh, friendship is complicated. No, friendship is intentional.
Ooh,
if you're gonna
say that.
No, really, like,
no, it is,
because I've had friends over the years that when I start saying like, well, I don't really appreciate this makes me uncomfortable, or I really, this is what I expect, or this is what I disagree with, or whatever, they're like, oh, it's so complicated with you. And I think that lowered my standard for years. Yeah, was the label of complicated friendsits. See, when it's actually I have intention. I have the boldness and the discernment to know what I need in my life. Just because you allow people in and out of your life and they drag you to and fro doesn't mean that I have to do that too.
Exactly.
And so
don't let someone who's down pull you down with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a story in scripture where a man falls into a well and it only takes one to push him in but 40 to get him out. So like it only takes one person to take you down, but it'll take a lot more to get you out. And so I'm like, no, not anymore. I've been dropped down that well and I took 80 to get me out.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I say this so much too because I'm like, it's so much easier to pull somebody down than to pull them up. Like I've always said this because like like I said, not everyone wants to go up. A lot of people want to hold you there with them in their comfort zone, keep you there. But I got to the point where I'm like, I want more. I don't want to just be.
Yeah, I have friends that I visit with randomly. I'll reach out to randomly. But like who I'm around consistently, who's around my child, who's allowed access into my marriage.
Like capacity is such a big thing. Like who's like there are like your inner circle. Which
Jesus has this, guys.
Yes.
Jesus had the multitudes, people who followed him to hear different scripture. Then he had 72 that were paired and picked and sent out into different places to get the word out, that were trusted to get the message out. Then he had the 12, and then he had his 3. Like this is biblical. So don't think it's like, cliques and
it's not cliquey at all.
But you should have your inner circle too.
Yeah.
It's not that you're not allowed into this one or allowed into that one. It's guess what? You need to prayerfully consider who is yours in your inner circle.
Because like for me, there's so many people that I care about. I will do so much for. But where I truly feel safe.
It's a lot smaller.
Yeah. And like.
I will say though, there is like there are some basics that we were saying.
Yes.
In friendship. And I think like to me, who is closely around my family and husband and kid, like daughter, like I want them to reflect what our life is about. So like, if you want friends that are going to grow with you in faith, I know this is going to make people uncomfortable, but you probably shouldn't be out with the club with them on Saturday and then expect them to encourage you on Sunday.
Ooh.
Like, you know what I mean? Like if there's people that are encouraging you to do things that are like completely against your conviction, you can't also expect that from that same mouth, you'll also get life-giving advice. Do you know what I mean? And I was blessed because I was, oh my gosh, in California, I had started a small group when I was maybe like 20, 21, something like that. And it was a group of, I think, like 12 girls. And most of them are still in my life. Becky, Raina, Fallon, like all you girls. All very much still like able to reach out to one another and all of that. But it was like very clear. When we're around each other, this is what we're about. Like you might invite me to go out and do something crazy, and you might like, and this is a temptation we have to fight. Like you might invite me to go do something and that is against my character, but it's my responsibility to say no. And once we set those expectations and those standards were set, I stopped getting invited to stuff that my life wasn't about. So maybe you're still getting invited to things because it seems like that's the way you're still living.
Ooh.
Like if you invited, Brie, you would never invite me out. Not that you go out to the clubs. Brie don't go to the clubs.
They dirty.
But you wouldn't invite me to the club even if he was going. Why?
We'll go to the country club and have a little sparkling water.
Little tea. But like, why wouldn't you invite me to the club? Because you know that I wouldn't be at the club.
I wouldn't be at the club.
I know, but I'm like,
no, and I would,
you know what I mean?
and I wouldn't like put you in that situation. That's another thing. We think about each other's like,
what is your life about?
Yes, and it's like I don't want to put anyone in a compromising position for one, and I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. Because if I'm gonna feel uncomfortable, why am I gonna put us both there?
Yeah,
no.
And I think well, that's what it was. It was like as my life grew, as I became more in love with Jesus, like in those early 20s for me, was like a lot of pruning. It was a lot of old relationships that went away. And again, it wasn't that like we weren't engaging with each other with other, like I wasn't engaging with those people that lived differently than me, but it was like I stopped getting invites. And that's why it can feel lonely the closer you get to Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not because you actually don't have people. It's because your life is proving for itself that it's different than it was before. And so people stop inviting you to those things. You stop going to those different spaces. And then that's when room is made for the friends that will match your life.
See, I could use this as an example. There were people I was hanging out with when Jerry and I first started dating. And their relationships weren't going too great, but then they see me in a happy relationship. Because before, I was the one who was single. And I was very supportive, always there for them. And then once I got in a relationship, once my happiness was starting to show, they were like, wait a second. You can't be happy. Your happiness.
Because if you're happy, that means you leave the circle.
That you leave the circle, and also,
But also healthy.
It was also a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
I had someone who was doing basic level stuff that shouldn't even be like, oh my gosh, he takes the trash out. He should be taking the trash out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he answered my text message. Girl, like, you know, it was just bare minimum. And I was just like, when I had somebody who was walking the walk, they were talking. They weren't happy with that.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I realized too with some friendships. If they just try to keep you back because they don't have it.
Well, it's because I think a lot of times the reason that our people around us don't want us to continue to grow is because if you grow and I don't, I'm left lonely.
Yes.
Right? And that's the boldness of a Jesus follower is even if I'm lonely, I'll still choose you, Jesus.
Yes.
Even if there's nobody around, even if I lose everything, I'll follow you. And at the opposite expense is why people don't want us to grow.
See, yeah.
They fear loneliness. And I would rather be lonely I'd rather be not lonely. I'd rather be alone and with Jesus than lonely and with the world.
Ooh,
like yes. I would prefer the latter. I would prefer to have nobody but Jesus than to have everybody and no Jesus.
I'm telling you, what did I say earlier? It may feel good, but it ain't right. It ain't right. Yeah. And it's just, yes, having all that stuff may feel good, but I'm just like, how do you feel at the end of the day when you are by yourself at home? Like, I know for me, when I get home, because whereas before, like, there are some friendships that I still have that are just absolutely amazing. And I know they gonna be my ride or dies.
Yeah.
And then, but even just here in this small town, it felt lonely pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
When we first moved here. But then every day I get home now, I'm like, I don't feel that loneliness. One, because I know my king is with me. I always, like, even when I'm like, God,
I want to travel. I want to go somewhere.
I'm like, God, let me do these things. But he's still aware. Not that he's still available and he's still there. And I'm aware that he's here. Whereas before, it didn't feel like he was. Mm-hmm. But not only do I have God, I have a healthy relationship with my husband. Mm-hmm. I got a healthy friendship. And I know at the end of the day, like, we can, like, not that we do, but I'm like, we can go like a week or two without talking. But I know we're solid.
Yeah.
And whereas before, like, I'd have friendships where
if you didn't talk regularly,
for me, I'm the type of person where I don't always check up. Yeah. You know, I don't need to like talk to you every single day. Mm-hmm. But it would, like, a lot of friendships, like, a lot of people didn't like that because I'm like, hey, like, and for me, I'm the type of person where I'm like, we could pick up where we left off. Mm-hmm. Some people can't be that way. They need the constant thing. But I know, like I just feel safe because I'm like, we could go, like, whenever we go on trips, when you're out of town, like, yes, I miss you. Yeah. But I'm like, I know we good.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like.
It's so good. It's so true. And I think that there has to be a security with friendships. Like, I know you have the best in mind for me. All I want for you is for you to get where God is calling you. For you to fulfill that thing that God's going to hold in front of you and be like, look, you did it. Like, you did it, baby. Everything I had assigned for you. Like, it happened. Yeah. Like, I want for you to stand. This is my intention. And should be the intention of your faith-based relationships.
Yes.
I want you to stand in front of the King of Kings one day and for him to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. That's all I want for my friends. For you to stand in front of him.
Yeah.
And that's what he says. So whatever that takes, I don't care how uncomfortable, how frustrated you get with me, how annoyed you are with the amount of times I push you to sing a song you don't want to sing. I don't care. Because guess what? When we chilling in heaven and we neighbors with our mansions and we technically ain't married up there, I got my friend.
I'll be like, hey girl.
I'll be like, nice crown. Like, I want that.
Look at that robe.
I want that more than I want anything for you in this life. That is the measuring stick of friendship. Yeah. Is that they want you to get to eternity and for the Lord to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Wow. And anything that gets in the way of that, I want to fight against it. See, I want to be at the front line for whatever thing that is opposing that thought, right?
Girl, because we be checking we be checking each other. There's times where I'm like, you better not let the devil see that to you. You be like,
yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'll be like, because we gotta go. Like, the thing is, we not only have to be like, because I'm the type of, I'll go into the ring for you physically, but also spiritually.
Also, but it doesn't have to be intense every time.
Like,
it can literally be like, yo, that's a lie.
Exactly.
That's all we say sometimes to each other. That ain't true.
I'll be like, check yourself.
And it doesn't have to be like, listen, we need to sit down and have a conversation. It's like, yo, that's not true. And just the eyes, we're like, okay.
Sometimes we just look at each other like.
And it's like, oh, dang. Yeah, you're right. But it's like, that has to be the goal. And I think when that is made so clear, then you feel safe. Mm-hmm. It's cool if we don't talk for a few weeks. Because when we are with each other, it's so clear what the goal for each other's life is.
Yes.
And I know, especially for some of you guys who are listening, they're like, this friendship sounds amazing. I want it. It's going to be scary. You're going to be scared. You're going to be uncomfortable because what if they hurt you? But what if they don't?
See, you can't live life on the what ifs. Like, you can't let the fear hold you back. Where, for me, a long time I was. But after saying yes to this, like, I've noticed, like,
almost nothing can scare you.
Girl.
Almost nothing.
Enemy who?
Yeah.
Like, no, seriously. And then when you have those people who are fighting those battles with you, like, this is how I fight my battles.
Yeah, dude, it's with people around you.
And fighting with you.
Like, Nehemiah had people fighting with him while he rebuilt the wall, while he rebuilt the temple. Like, he had people also in the fight as he was building. Yeah. Like, you want to build your life, you want to rebuild your life, you need people to join you. That have a Bible in one hand and a sword in the other. Like, you need that as well. And it's scary. Like, it's scary. It's nerve-wracking. I know people that are in our friendship. Like, I'm going to shout out Em. I know for her it was scary to make friends. Yeah. But, like, that risk is so worth it. And just following Jesus at all is a risk. Like, doing this gospel thing, it's risky. But at the end of it, you realize that every single misstep, pain, hurt, even if there happens to be pain later down the line between us, we know that God's going to turn it around for the good. Yes. It's not a question of if it's going to be good. It's a question of how painful will the good be.
That's so good.
Like, will it still be good if it's painful? Yes. Like, I've been through some things that are deeply painful, but God has turned them around for the good. Yeah. You know? And so I think, to kind of sum up, because I think we could talk for a very long time. If you can't tell, like, I forgot that the cameras were here. But we could talk forever.
Sometimes our husbands come around the corner like,
y'all done? I will say this, like, I think there's a few takeaways from this, and I want to just say thank you for opening and being so honest and being so quick to just jump in, because Bree just came straight from like an 8-hour work shift, went home, changed, ate, and then sat behind the cameras. So thank you, friend, for jumping in. But I will say, when you listen back, you really will hear the story of, like, now a family, but starting with Bree, who was, yes, raised in faith, but had windows of time where she wasn't in faith. And still came around to the groundbreaking truth that nothing changes your life like faith, like a leap with Jesus.
And nothing, I will say this, it is never too late. Because a lot of people are like, it's too late for me. I'm like, you may have not accepted the call before. It may have been disconnected.
But you can do it now.
You could do it now. Yeah. And it's crazy because, like, just a lot of things that I'm doing now, and even like the perspective change. Like, there were things I'm like, man, I want to do this. I want to do this. I am. It's not how I thought it was going to be wrapped, but I am so thankful and so blessed that it wasn't wrapped the way I thought it was going to be or how I wanted it. Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm in awe of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is crazy. Like she says, like, it's not too late, and it's not going to be the same that it was last time.
It won't be.
It can't be. It literally can't be. You can't repeat, you know? And I will just say, wherever you're at, friends, when you're watching, I just hope that you have, like, either a great group of friends around you, or you start to prayerfully consider, to ask God to bring those people to you, because I know, like, I wouldn't do this, baby, without you, girl. Like, I would not be able to do this without you, and I'm so thankful.
I love you.
So thankful for you, because it's like, you know, you need the people around you in those seasons.
And it's attainable.
Yeah, it is. It's not impossible. So I know this was a long episode, and guess what? There's probably going to be a part 2 and a part 3 and a part 4, because we could just go on for days. But thanks, y'all, for watching.
That's just the appetizer.
That was just the appetizer. Next, we're going to get some more of our friends on, and we'll just keep the conversation going. Yes. So, we love y'all. Thanks for listening to Good News Pod this week. I can't wait for the next ones.
Yes. Bye.
Peace, fam.